Hello, my name is Penny Haren, and today I'm going to share how to make one of the blocks that is in my new book. Today we're going to make a round Dresden plate. This particular Dresden plate has 8 different segments that have 45-degree angles. When I originally tried to make this block, they said to sew together the 8 segments and then needle turn the outside edge as desired. I am not good at needle turning. I did not have any desire to do it that way. And so I created this technique so that I could get these perfect curves that I was trying to achieve by needle turning in a much easier way. So you can create this entire block in about 15 minutes using this technique. The 45-degree segments are cut with the Creative Grid's 45-degree kaleidoscope and Dresden plate ruler. This ruler has a 45-degree angle here. There is a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance around the entire outside edge that has gripper on it so it does not slide when you're cutting. And it features a center line here. This center line is going to be very important because we want to fussy cut some of the segments of our Dresden plate so our designs are centered in the center of the petals. So I'll show you how to do that very easily. We're going to take a strip of fabric. In this particular case, the fabric is cut 2 3/4 inches wide. And if you notice, this fabric has about a 5-inch repeat from design to design. So I'm going to take the ruler and place the 3 1/4 inch line on the bottom of the strip and center the black line down the center of the design in the fabric. Now I can take my rotary cutter and cut on both sides, and I can rotate the ruler around and pick up the next design, which is different from this, but I'll just put it in a different Dresden plate. So this time, see, there's my 1 unit. I'm going to take this and place it on there, again with the 3 1/4 inch line on the bottom, the black line going through the center design, and I'll rotary cut on both sides, so the only waste I'm going to have is this little strip in between each of these Dresden plates. And that is a small price to pay to have all of the petals in my Dresden plate have this very intricate design centered in each petal, because it adds a lot of interest to the finished block. So we would continue doing that across the strip of the fabric until we had 4 fussy cut units. And then we would take the tone on tone, that is a wonderful coordinate, because you can see there's a lot of contrast there, so the fussy cut segment is going to show up very well in our finished project. So again, I'm going to take the ruler, and I've already cut some from here. So see how I can line up the 3 1/4 inch from the bottom? I would just rotary cut here, rotate the ruler 180 degrees, and continue to do that the entire piece. I can stack up to 8 layers at a time if I want to cut these very quickly. Normally, since I need 4 in each block, I just layer 4 layers of fabric, because every time I rotate the ruler, I have all of the segments I need for an entire block. There's absolutely no waste of fabric. So once I've done that, I'm going to have 4 fussy cut segments and 4 of my tone on tones that are the bronze. Now when I get ready to sew this together, since there are 8 units, I can pick them up to pairs, and I'm going to sew 4 pairs together of 2 blocks. I'm always going to put the light fabric on top that has more of a plain back, because it's much easier to see to sew my 1/4 of an inch seam than if I try to sew from this side of the fabric, which is darker and busier. So I always have to sew all of them with the same fabric on top, or I will not have the fabrics alternating when I press my seams. So once I've done that, I'm going to pick those all up, and with the magic of cameras, that's already been done. And see, now I have 4 segments of 2. And you can see the fussy cuts units are really showing that you'll be able to see that finished design in the piece, and the fabrics are still alternating. Now I'll pick these up, and I just have to sew the 2 segments of 2 into 2 units of 4. So I'm going to sew right across these pieces, and I'll have the 2 halves of my Dresden plate block. Now for this last seam, I don't even bother clipping it. I just put them right sides together and sew and let the thread continue right across that little space to open it up. And remember when we put the 3 1/4 inch line on the ruler, even though the strip was 2 3/4 inches, that gave you blunt points all on the inside here, so it alleviated all of the bulk where all of these points would have matched, and so you get a very flat block very easily, and you don't have any of that bulk to deal with. So when I sew those together, now I have a piece like this. I always press the seams open because I want to trim this anyway and turn it over an applique template, but it also alleviates all of the bulk in these seams. So there is the unit, and now I'm going to show you the trick I created to make it possible to turn this very easily without having to do any needle turning. This is the template that we use for this block, and if you go to the Landauer website, you can download these templates for free, and they'll be in the multiples you need to make the entire quilt or project. And in this particular case, I downloaded it on copy paper and iron freezer paper to the wrong side of it. That gives you a very crisp outside edge, and it will not only remove from the block in one piece, it also gives you a very crisp edge to turn the outside edge over this template, and so you'll get perfect curves. Now you'll also notice that the outside edges are all starred. That means that all of those edges need turned. The B stands for bronze, FC stands for fussy cutting, and whenever there's fussy cutting, we've added dashed lines because we want to take those lines and center it on our fussy cut units so we know that this is going to be in the center of each petal. So all we're going to do now is turn this over, and we'll use a glue stick. I don't use anything fancy. This is an Avery glue stick that I buy at Staples. It does say that it's permanent on here, but that's not really true because if you read the fine print, it says it's washable. So it comes out easily when you dip the block in warm water. So I'm just going to turn this over and run some glue around the outside edges. You don't have to be aggressive with the glue. You learn with experience that you don't have to use as much as you thought. And the solid black lines are going to be lined up on the seam, and the dash line are going to be lining up right in the middle of my appliques. So see, I've glued that into position, and now I'm going to take a pair of scissors and just trim 1/4 inch away from the outside edge. This is going to be turned in its curve. You're not going to be able to do it exactly, but I'm just going to cut approximately 1/4 inch and eye it. So I'm going to have a piece like this. Now I'm going to take and just pull the seam apart a little bit at each one of these, and it's very easy to do because you're just pulling out a few threads on every one of those, because I want to be able to turn this over this template. So you'll see how quick this is instead of trying to needle turn that entire edge and have everything look the same. So I'm going to take the glue stick. I put the glue stick on the template and on the fabric so it acts as a double-sided tape. Now you may want to do half of this block at a time when you're starting out, but you'll get very fast at it very quickly, and I can easily turn this whole block. So I'm going to turn it, and see, I'm just going to take this and roll the fabric over the template and see how quickly this goes. And it only takes a few minutes to do this. Now, when I'm done turning, I always take a moment to look at it and see if I have any little points sticking out, and a lot of times I'll just run my finger around the edge because I want to make sure that it's perfectly smooth. And if it's not, see, I can pull in these edges, maybe add a little bit more glue, and see how the back has little gathers in it. You want little gathers because that means that it's perfectly smooth on this side. And isn't that beautiful? So I had all of those edges. It took me about 2 minutes to do that, and I didn't have to work at doing all of that needle turning on the outside and doing it all by hand, because now I can do this entire block on the machine. When you're not using your glue stick, make sure you cover it because it'll dry out very easily. A glue stick is a water-based product, so when it's not in use and you're at home, keep it in your refrigerator because they won't. Now, the only thing we have to do to finish this is applique the center. On the center circle, again, it's freezer paper ironed onto the wrong side of the template that we downloaded from the Landauer website. The A means that it is the first applique in this block, and in this case, it's the only applique. DB is in parens, and that means it's the fabric color that we chose. If you're using a different color, that's okay. You can just substitute whatever you want. The stars mean the entire outside edges are turned. So we tried to make this as mindless as possible, so this is great TV work. You don't even have to think about it. It does matter how you cut these out. This isn't the time for kindergarten cutting because whatever shape this is going to be the final look of your applique. So put modesty aside, put on your reading glasses if you have to, and cut it out as accurately as possible. Again, I'm running the glue around the fabric and the paper, and if you notice, I'm not getting anything on my hands because the glue stick is not actually touching them. See, so you get used to it, and when I pick it up, I'm putting my nail in the center of this piece. So you learn very quickly how not to get a lot of glue on yourself when you're doing this. Now I'm taking one nail and moving forward about 1/8 of an inch at a time because I want to gather this fabric around the template so I maintain the circle shape. And when I get back to the center, usually you just have to pull that up so you don't end up with a little pointed edge on that. So see, I have a perfect circle in the center. Now I'm going to take and put a dab of glue there and pop it right in the center. And there's my Dresden plate. Now to complete this, I would center it on a background. In most of the quilts, these finish to 6.5 inches, but normally I cut the background a little larger because when you applique something on it, sometimes it pulls the fabric up, and this will no longer measure 6.5 inches. So normally I have you cut these 7 inches, do the applique, remove the templates, and then trim this down so you have a perfect 6.5 inch. So now I'll take this, put a dab of glue on the back, and center my block, center the Dresden plate on the block, and then I can choose to applique this down by hand, or I can take it to the sewing machine and use a narrow zigzag with a monofilament or invisible thread on top, and I use a neutral thread in the bobbin. So when I stitch this with that narrow zigzag, I don't adjust the length, I just adjust the width. I can stitch this down on the machine in less than 5 minutes. So once this is stitched, I'll turn it over. You'll be able to see the stitching line here. I pull this fabric away a little bit and slit it and dip it in a sink of warm water. The glue will dissolve and that template will fall right out. Then I'll see the little circle and I'll pull that out through that little hole that's left in the center when we piece this together, and I'll have a perfect block. Then I'll just take it to my ironing board, press it, and trim it down to 6.5 inches. These blocks are very easy to do and fun. You can do about 20 of them in 4 or 5 hours. So this is definitely an afternoon project, so I hope you enjoy it.